Hello everyone, now that I'm back from Japan, I finally got some quality time in with the Revelry spring event, so we're going to talk about that, along with the recently announced Luna's Howl and Not Forgotten nerfs. So, if you've been living under a rock like me, the Revelry is Destiny's springtime event of 2019, where you are celebrating the fact that you're alive. Alright, I guess that's fine. The event is much less complicated than something like the Dawning. There's only one material to go out and find, no crafting cookies or anything like that. You get the Tonic, which boosts the regeneration rate of either your grenade, or your grenade ability, and then wearing more pieces of the Revelry armor boosts this effect even further. This Tonic works everywhere. Everywhere. The Verdant Forest is an actually infinite forest, where killing enemies adds time to your clock for you to stay in the forest. When time runs out, you fight 5 bosses, and the amount of time you get depends on how many sections of the forest you previously cleared. Killing enemies in the boss arena also adds time. Now, besides the 50 sections cleared triumph for this event, there doesn't appear to be any reason to go very far into the Verdant Forest. The waves don't get any more or less difficult, and there don't appear to be any rewards attached to going deep into the forest. Finally, Eververse comes fully stocked with items to no one's surprise. Thoughts on this event? Yeah, it's okay. It's not remarkable, and I'm basically engaging it only for the triumphs in case Bungie ever makes a purple proto-drake. As usual, I'd like to see a little more development on something like the Verdant Forest, where going above and beyond produces higher level items or vanity items, scoring, leaderboards, the whole nine. You all know this about me by now. It is a mindless trek through the Infinite Forest and not really anything more than that. I get that the odds of having super challenging content or optionally challenging content is really low, especially in a 3-week event, because it would be very expensive to do, and because people absolutely do not like timed events that have super rare, super hard stuff to get. I'm looking at you, new Iron Burdened Emblem. The Tonic is fun in PvE, I guess. I've seen many cool things that the community has done as a result. Grenade-only kills, Kepri's Horn kills. It's great. It makes the game even easier than ever. I'm not always the hugest fan of that, but I guess it's kind of whatever. People like it. I'm just used to the game already being so easy in PvE that just grenade spamming stuff doesn't really do a whole lot for me nowadays in terms of excitement or fun levels. Be sure to go grab your solo Shattered Throne run while you can do it easily, by the way. I'm growing a little tired of the Infinite Forest setting, or maybe it's the Infinite Forest setting with just mindlessly going forward. I get that they're trying to get some value out of it, and that if it wasn't the Infinite Forest, it would be something else that was reused. Probably not likely for Bungie to build a completely new area for something like that. We run into some issues with PvP and the Tonic. Now, I think this would have been fine if it had its own Revelry-specific Mayhem mode or something like that to make it more of a novelty, but having PvP be the way that it is for 3 weeks, including competitive, with no option to play a normal PvP mode, is rough. You could compare it to the weekend that Prometheus Lens was broken. Yes, it broke PvP, but it was for a weekend. The novelty, at least for me, wore off after a few rounds, but you only needed to wait until reset for it to go back to normal. This is 3 weeks. Eververse items are, yeah, they're fine, it's Eververse. Kinda wish they made the helm ornament permanent, you know, linking it to the complete all triumphs meta triumph, or hitting a certain amount of waves in the Verdant Forest, something like that. Overall, it wasn't anything crazy. This event was just something for people to go do for a little bit and to score a new exotic. I think the fact that Season of the Drifter has not been as engaging as Black Armory sort of makes me a bit more jaded or unenthusiastic than I normally would be on something like this. I don't have much enthusiasm for the event. I had almost no enthusiasm even writing up this script to discuss it. Besides the PvP issues, I don't think there was anything overly wrong with it, but it just didn't do a whole lot for me, and if I wasn't a Triumph Hunter, I probably would not have really engaged with this event that much. But then again, the only things that are gonna do something for me are things that Bungie isn't really gonna put into a limited time event. Next up, we have the Luna's Howl and Not Forgotten Nerfs. In a recent post, Bungie outlined their plans to nerf these Crucible Pinnacle weapons in Season 7, Season of Opulence, stating that they ended up being too powerful. Wow, what a surprise, didn't see that coming at all. Unlike something like the Recluse, the main perk of these weapons has no ramp-up time. It is always working, and quote, players feel that the majority of primary weapons in Destiny 2 cannot compete with these pinnacle weapons, end quote, probably because that's true. As a result, both of these weapons are going from 180 RPM precision hand cannons to 150 RPM precision hand cannons, and Magnificent Howl will only increase body shot damage, not headshot damage, to prevent people from getting two-tapped by Magnificent Howl procs. Thoughts on this? Well, I'm honestly surprised it took this long considering the non-stop complaining I saw about these weapons, although this feels more like a console-related problem as opposed to PC. I do get that you can't really have Lunas be 180 on PC and 150 on console, though. You can't really do that. While it's true that high-skill players will dominate with these weapons, and that not everything will be able to compete with the optimal time-to-kill times of these weapons, wasn't that the point? To get a weapon that is better than other weapons via a difficult quest line? Now granted, this is a rich get richer situation, as people who are good enough to get these guns probably will still win a lot more than they lose, which was bound to hit a critical mass at some point. You give the best players the best items, and shocker, they destroy the rest of the population. It happened with Vex Mythoclast when it first launched, but the difference here is that I feel like more people have Lunas than Vex Mythoclast when Vex was busted. It's only been getting easier to progress in competitive play. 2100 Glory has never been easier to get, resulting in a larger population of players having the weapon, maybe more than what was anticipated. Lunas becomes the new normal, and instead of encountering it every once in a while, you're seeing it every game. This leads to frustration, as on an even playing field with everyone hitting their shots optimally, Lunas and Not Forgotten just win, even though, again, I think that was kind of the point originally. The line of rewarding really good weapons for difficult PvP achievements is much finer than PvE ones, as we're seeing now. Maybe the plan was for more hardcore or skilled players to stick to the competitive playlist when these weapons were released. That did not happen, and probably will not happen until a much more robust competitive experience is implemented into Destiny, which I honestly don't see happening anytime soon, based on a theory that is coming completely out of my ass. These players then poured into quick play because killing people is a lot more fun than playing competitive. These nerfs will set a precedent going forward, and we will likely not see weapons similar to them again in the game unless the game shifts dramatically. We've already seen evidence of this. Expect to see more things like the Recluse or Breakneck, weapons that require ramp-up time before they really deal some big damage, although it wouldn't surprise me at all if Recluse gets hit next. The weapons are particularly dominant on console because they do not have bloom on them, while other hand cannons do, on top of high recoil. On PC, bloom is not an issue, but when Ace of Spades on PC is already an outstanding weapon, I can't see the average player willing to chase Lunas or Not Forgotten unless they just want it as a trophy. Ace won't be making a resurgence because in order to have a resurgence, you needed to have been unpopular in the first place, which Ace has never been. On console, things are different, and bloom is a much more invasive force. Lunas and Not Forgotten do not have bloom, along with other 180 RPM hand cannons, and as a result, are very dominant on top of Magnificent Howl over other hand cannons. Now, the weapons are staying as precision weapons, but we don't know if these weapons will have bloom on them after their adjustment. My guess would be no, as that would completely neuter the weapons, but I don't know. Bloom exists pretty much to slow high-skill players down from annihilating everyone, which probably isn't too far off from why these guns are getting nerfed. A good chunk of the community thinks that bloom should just be removed altogether, along with console recoil getting reduced, something I would be interested in seeing the results of. This, however, would definitely be a buff for higher skill players though. Currently, a 150 RPM hand cannon deals 68 damage to the head. 3 headshots will deal 204, which I think is lethal against all resilience levels. Maybe the very top end can survive, but I don't think so. The change makes it so Lunas can kill in 2 headshots and then a body shot instead of 3 headshots on a 150 archetype. That's what's happening to this gun. The PvE implications of the Magnificent Howl nerf are huge, even if the weapon wasn't designed with PvE in mind. They weren't the best PvE weapons in the game, but Lunas and Not Forgotten were still pretty good at taking out medium and high tier targets because of the massively increased headshot damage. I really hate perks that make you aim or incentivize aiming for the body for whatever reason, because you should always be going for headshots whenever possible. Magnificent Howl no longer works on headshots, meaning the main appeal of the gun in PvE is dead to me. As for the desire to remove 2-tapping with headshots, this is a Hawkmoon 2.0 situation, although Hawkmoon was worse, I will admit. The fact is, 2-tapping people with Not Forgotten doesn't happen terribly often, and if you're in a position where you can get it to happen, then I say more power to you. One-shotting someone with Hawkmoon was incredibly rare. I think I did it 3 times over the course of a year, and only once did I record it. Getting Not Forgotten to 2-tap someone required a specific circumstance to happen, a skillful circumstance to set up, and if you're good enough to do that, again, I think more power to you. I've seen a lot of the buff everything else to their level stuff, and yet again, I disagree because of power creep. If you buff everything else to Luna's level, then the entire game becomes that fast, and then things have to get faster and faster until we're just out of control. Overall, I am personally not very impacted by this, as I did not use my Not Forgotten very often in PvP. How you feel probably depends on if you're someone with Lunas or Not Forgotten. If you don't have it, then you're probably relieved that it's getting nerfed. And if you do have it and do use it, then you're probably pretty mad that you went through the trouble of getting it and now it's getting nerfed. That's all I got on those 2 topics. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.